Hello, hello, and welcome to the Charlotte Mason Enrichment Podcast. My name is Elise Thompson. I am so glad that you are joining me and my guests today. The whole reason we come to you every week is to encourage you and to equip you and to enrich your life as a Charlotte Mason educator. I am so thrilled to have joining me today Miss Mary Salas with Our Kid and Home. She is an amazing mom and has just an amazing journey that she's going to share with us today. We're going to be talking about homeschooling and homemaking and how to have a pace of grace. So I'm going to read her bio. Mary is a West Coast transplant currently residing in Oklahoma. She's a mom of 4 and she's been married to her husband for almost 10 years. She is a lifestyle photographer for families and brands. She's a content creator and an influencer, sharing gospel hope for ordinary moms and finding beauty in the mundane. Making her house a Christ-centered home and fostering intention and connection, being the heartbeat of everything that she shares, which I can give just full testament to. Just love seeing how God is using her and her influence through social media. So welcome, Mary, to the Charlotte Mason Enrichment Podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, so glad you're here. So like Mary said, she is an Okie now, as we like to say. And so we are both a part of a really cool Charlotte Mason community, and that's kind of how our paths have crossed. We're in a book club together, which is super fun. We both enjoy learning and growing and going through Charlotte Mason's volume. We're on volume 2 together right now. So fun. Mary, how are you doing today?
I'm good. My husband just took my kids to Costco, so the house is quiet for the first time in a week.
With 4 kids, that's probably a rarity that it's quiet in your home.
Yeah, very rare.
Yeah, we said a little prayer for him before because 4 kids to Costco on a Saturday.
On his own.
Lord bless him.
Lord bless him.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit just about your family.
Sure. So I have 4 kids. Nora, who is 8.5. She was our newlywed surprise baby. We had plans and intentions of waiting several years. We were going to travel the world after we got married, and instead we had our sweet precious Nora. And so our testimony kind of revolves around our plans now being just our hands wide open, because the Lord has always done that with our plans, where we make them and he's like, Proverbs 16:9, don't forget that.
Yeah.
And so we have Mabel, who is just 16 months younger than Nora, and she is 7. Rudy is our rainbow boy. He is our 2020 baby. He's
awesome.
4.5. And then Dahlia, we call her Dolly. She is freshly 2.
Yay, how fun. That's so wonderful. And you said you and your husband have been married for about 10 years.
Almost. In May, we celebrate 10 years married and 13 years together.
Oh, that's so cool. And how did you guys meet?
So we met at church. I was a senior in high school, but like a leader in my youth group, church youth group. And he was a new intern at the ministry program in Lake Bible College that our church had way over in California. And so he moved from San Jose to Sacramento to come to where my church and youth group and everything was. And he became an intern in the ministry that helped lead our youth group. So he came from San Jose and I was a senior in high school, and we locked eyes one night and I thought, I think I'm going to marry him one day. And then several years went by before we finally actually ended up dating, and the rest is history.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So cool. So tell me and everybody just a little bit about your life and kind of like how you grew up, and if it's any different than kind of like how you're raising your family.
Yes.
Today.
So I grew up, I'm number 7 of a blended family. It's a very yours, mine, and ours situation. My parents were both previously married, and they each had 3 kids, and ended up coming together and getting married later on in life. And then they had me, and it was a huge surprise. Big gaps between their youngest and then me. So they were both like heavily involved in their careers. They were, we lived in the Bay Area in California, so it's very busy. They commuted like an hour to work. My dad worked in law enforcement and would travel to the city every day, and he took the train. Like, it was a big ordeal. And I was the youngest, and I kind of was alone a lot, honestly. I was in public school. I walked to school. Truly a very different like time too, the 90s. But so I was in the public school. My parents both worked to support our family and living in California. But we were also very involved in our church and in ministry and in helping those less fortunate. Very much just like out of the home, parents working, me in school. I was also often in daycare up until a certain point, like after school and whatnot. And then we moved, and I ended up going to a private Christian school. And that was similar. Like, I was kind of just at the school all day long. And then I was involved in sports. I played soccer all throughout high school. So our family unit was very much kind of like everybody doing their own thing. My siblings were all a lot older. They were either in college or in their jobs already. Like, they were like off. And so it was really just me and my parents.
Okay.
And I kind of grew up as an only child, but mostly like peer oriented and very much like in the school or in church, like the youth group when I was older, or in like little, children's programs when I was younger. And then, like I already mentioned, daycare and school programs. So it's very different than doing.
And I'm asking you these questions because I feel like, a lot of times when people arrive to kind of how they're living their lives, it can just be interesting how it's like, well, I wasn't raised like this, but I've ended up here. And so it's kind of just neat to kind of hear, people's story about like how they started and then like how they've ended up here. Cause I feel like there's like things that we can learn along the way. So that's kind of why I'm asking those questions. And so obviously now you're a stay-at-home kind of working from home mom, and you homeschool your kids. So you're raising your family very different from the way that you were raised. So tell me, how did you find out about Charlotte Mason and decide you wanted to homeschool? Because that was not the way you were brought up at all.
Right. So when we had our second daughter, she was a brand new baby, and my husband was in the military. We were moved 10 days postpartum out of state from California to Washington. And so then we were on our own. We were alone. We no longer had family or friends or anybody. It was just us forging our own family way. And ultimately, we were very excited. We had always wanted to move to the Pacific Northwest, so it was a dream come true. But it was also really, really hard. It was challenging. I actually was looking around for preschools. I was asking around for help and trying to figure out like what kind of situations can I put my kids in, because I felt like they needed that. I felt like I'm not enough for them. I need to put them somewhere. And so what happened was one day I walked into this coffee shop. I actually went in there. My husband was home with the girls. It was probably a weekend or something. And I went there. I brought my laptop. I was going to edit a photo session. And I randomly decided to ask the barista, like, hey, do you know of any like babysitters or nannies or preschools that I could look into? And she looked at me and she smiled. And she said, no, but I homeschool my 3 boys, and I bet you could do the same. And I was just like, who are you? Like, what are you saying to me right now? And
Wow.
what do you mean you homeschool your 3 boys, but you're here like you're a barista? Like my brain was like, what is happening right now? And I took on a little bit of offense, but mostly I took on a lot of curiosity. Um, and now she and I are literally best friends.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's another story. But ultimately, it was that moment that literally changed the trajectory of my decision making from that point forward. We started talking. She was talking about homeschooling. I told her my girls' ages, and she was like, "They can just play. They can. They don't need to be in school." They were literally 2 and 1.
Okay.
And
You were ready. You were an early beaver, an eager beaver.
so I don't know. I think everyone I had known like ahead of me. So we got married pretty young, and so none of my peers that I had known from California were really like having kids yet. Some of them were just freshly getting married, and so I just felt kind of alone. And so I saw who I did see, like they were putting their kids in preschool, and I thought, oh, that's what I should do too. Then they'll be really smart. And so when I met my friend and her sister, who was also a barista, and I found out that her sister had been homeschooled and she was really cool and really awesome and also one of my best friends. Then I met their mom who did this and like raised them and
Oh, wow.
homeschooled and helps like just all of these things. I was like, okay, wow, wait, I want this. Like, you guys are amazing. So you're the fruit. Like, you think I could do this? And so that's where it started.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool. Man, that's encouraging that it's like, hey, we could just, give somebody a little bit of encouragement and maybe help to plant a seed of, hey, you can do this. And like just to see the fruits of it, not only in your life, but so many other people that you get to encourage on a daily basis with your influence. So that is really, really cool.
It was honestly all credit to the Lord. Like it was all obviously like his plan. But it was really cool. So we moved to Oklahoma 3 years ago. And it was really right after we moved here. It was shortly before when we were still in Washington that I started learning about Charlotte Mason. I had decided that I was going to go with the Peaceful Press for a preschool, like a homeschool curriculum. And she mentions like in the parent guides, Charlotte Mason and how it's a Charlotte Mason inspired curriculum. And so that's when I was like, Charlotte Mason, what is this? And then I read the book Wild and Free by Ainsley Armand, and she goes through all of the different like types of homeschooling. And I remember like making a mental bookmark of her explanation of a Charlotte Mason education. And I was really intrigued by it. And then it was really, when we moved to Oklahoma, and I was, again, just kind of on my own. We didn't know anybody here. And I just started reading books. And then I met a lot of adults, like grown people here who had been homeschooled using the Charlotte Mason method. Like they were like Ambleside families and they're like my age. And I'm like, wait, you were homeschooled, like using what I'm looking at? Like, I was just like, this is really neat. Like, so this is like time tested. You're really smart. You're very well read. I like talking to you. You are like very good conversationally. So that's when my wheels started turning. Like, I think I want to look more into Charlotte Mason. Like, what is this? Like, what is this about? And so then I started deep diving the Simply Charlotte Mason YouTube channel. So
a great resource. Yeah.
Yes, I love her. And her videos really just helped like these nugget size videos that just really helped wrap my brain around how to make it practical and like really implement things into a normal life.
Yeah.
And that's when I started. And then I just started reading all the books and For the Children's Sake and Charlotte Mason Companion and, all it just, spiraled.
You went down the trail. That's so amazing. So how has reading and implementing Charlotte Mason, like how has that affected your motherhood for you?
Yeah, I feel like Charlotte Mason One of my favorite things about her method is the fact that she constantly, like, the reminder of, like, the Holy Spirit is the ultimate teacher. We are simply his vessel, and he works through us. And so the reminder that really, like, it's not actually up to me. I'm simply being obedient to whatever the Lord leads me to. Um, and then trusting in, like, the actual science and philosophy and the pedagogy of the Charlotte Mason way of doing things, knowing that, like, ultimately it's all him anyways, as you've seen with my life. Like, make the plans, I can lay the feast, I can do all of these things, but really he is the one who guides us, he's the one who leads us, and he's doing the same for my kids. And so as far as my motherhood, it's really helped me see and value my kids as a whole person. I mean, principle number one, children are born persons. And I feel like that's such an obvious, like, of course they're born a person.
Right. Yeah.
But when we really look at history and when we really look at, like, cultural norms, the reality is children aren't actually treated like people. They're treated like this little thing that's either a nuisance or needs to be filled up with whatever we feel we need to fill them up with. When in reality, God is talking to them. God is also making them, he's made them already full of learning. And so just treating them like that it's an all-encompassing thing. It's not just home education. It's not just books. It's not just how they're learning. It's an overall lifestyle, really.
Yeah. No, that's so good. I feel like I've been talking about that a lot. It's like you hear the first principle of, like, children are born persons, and you're like, well, yeah, duh. But it's very true. Like, we really can exemplify that we really have an understanding of that and how we interact with our children, and then in turn how we treat them and we raise them. And so really examining, like, okay, are we really living like we have a full grasp on that principle, I think is a good question to ask ourselves. And if not, there's grace. Like, we can make those changes. And I know for you, like, I know obviously getting to Charlotte Mason was a journey. I remember seeing a post that you shared, or maybe it was a video you shared, and how you kind of ended up in the way that you're living and you're raising your children. And you said something along the lines of, like, I tried all the, like, societal norms, or like what, trending, or what people are subscribing to, the way people are living, and it didn't work for you. So that's kind of how you ended up, kind of where you're at now. So can you kind of explain a little bit more of what that looks like and how that's kind of evolved for you guys?
Definitely. I can think of one specific example that I feel like might help. So we started out, when we first started homeschooling, my oldest was 4. And I went the workbook route. And not that, like, I went the workbook route, and I was like, we have to finish, we have to do this, so that I know that you're learning, so that I have this, like, tabs that I can check off and make sure that I'm doing the right thing just by making sure that this workbook gets filled out. But then my daughter was, like, over it. Like, she was just like, it was just pushback, like, I don't want to do school. And so then she didn't want to have anything to do with anything that would mean, like, learning. So then it was like, well, this defeats the whole purpose. I want you to enjoy learning. When you're 17 and you want to learn about how to grow roses, I want you to be able to know and how to research that and how to develop that skill and how to trial and error. But, like, if at this stage you're literally already pushing back, you don't want to, like, you have this distaste, then I'm doing something wrong. Additionally, I really learned that, like, moving forward just for the sake of moving forward can really be a disservice to the child. I was really struggling with my daughter with math. She's very creative. She's a writer. She is she's so gifted in a million ways, truly. And math, it was just this constant thing that was a wall, like there was a block. And no matter what, like we just could not push through. And I found that like I had to literally pause and completely set math aside for a long time before she came back around and was like, oh, wait, I do know this.
Yeah.
And so I feel like what I learned through that is one, developmental, like, you can't just assume that, okay, this is book one for this grade and this age. So of course, like my daughter should know all of this and it'll all work for her. But the reality is she's very gifted in these other ways, very advanced for her age, reading chapter books at this certain age that like is not normal. So why does it matter if she's at this level for math? Like, who is she up against? She's not up against anyone other than constantly bettering herself. And that's the same for us as adults. We're not comparing. You and I are not. There's no comparison. We're two totally different people on two totally different journeys.
Yeah.
And we stay in our own lane. And so it's the same with our children, learning that, like, I need to be able to be okay with keeping her in her own lane. Because then not only will that build her confidence as she grows, it gets me out of the trap of like, this isn't a school classroom. Like, this is our room where we foster learning, whatever pace that is. And so I'm also very thankful that we live in Oklahoma, where we are very blessed with the homeschool regulations. And that's actually why we moved here, was for that freedom. And being able to look at each individual child and their individual needs and like not have to put them up to a roster of like, oh, you're down here in math, so we have to do this, this, and this. It's like, no, we're going at your pace because this is how God made you. And that's okay. And we can excel and go over and above in these other areas that you're thriving in. And like you said, like go at a pace of grace with other things that may not come naturally. And go in a way that you still enjoy it. Even if we're on like the same thing for what feels like forever, we will advance eventually. It's not a race.
That's so good. So you feel like the societal norms of, doing, worksheets or whatever, like that just did not serve your daughter well. And so it was like, okay, we gotta do something different that's gonna serve her well. So it's like you've tried the things that society would tell you you need to do, but ultimately it just wasn't serving your family well. Yeah, and I think that's so good. I remember my friend gave me a piece of advice that when my oldest son was like baby, and it has just stuck with me, and she always told me to do what's best for your family, and what's your family will look so different than other people's, and that's okay, and I even think we could take that to each child, and whatever's best for that child, do what's best for that child. And even if it looks different for their sibling that's like 15 months older, like it's okay. And so hopefully that's setting somebody really free.
I hope so, because it's so true. Like it's not a rat race. Our kids are not a race. We simply want them to learn, and we want them to enjoy learning. Like we're simply laying out the feast, and they learn what they learn in the ways that like their mind does. And that's the beauty of it, is that we all consume information in different ways too. The way that, like you said, the way that my oldest daughter learns is also very different from my 7-year-old daughter. They're only 16 months apart, and they are so different. Like they could not be more different. They are so very different. They learn differently. They are different. The personalities are different. And if I were to just assume that everything that they are doing is going to be the exact same, what a disservice to them.
Yeah. No, that's so good. That's so good.
Our family as a whole. Yes.
Yeah. No, that's really, really good. So tell us about like motherhood and kind of how that has evolved for you. Obviously, like moving away from family and kind of having to forge your own way. It sounds like the way you're raising your children is very different from how you were raised. And obviously circumstances look different, but like, tell us just kind of about your journey into motherhood and how you've kind of landed and decided on how you're raising your 4 little blessings?
Sure. A lot of trial and error. That is for sure.
Yeah.
We got married when I was 22. We had our first baby when I was 23. So we had her like shortly after, 2 months after our 1-year wedding anniversary. And I don't know, I feel like it really was, I learned as I went, and I did things with my first baby. Like I had these really high pressures on myself, much like school and like homeschool, where I'm like, she's not sleeping through the night, I'm doing something wrong. She's not feeding the right way, I'm doing something wrong. And instead of like just having that grace with myself initially and reaching out for help and like advice from trusted people, I just kind of felt like I was failing and floundering. And I had these very unrealistic expectations that I just put on myself based on what was societal norms. You know, this was 8.5 years ago. And so like people would say, and I'm a brand new mom. I didn't know what I was doing. And when people say like, oh, she's sleeping through the night, I'm like, is she supposed to be? Like, out here? Like, what should I be doing? Like, do I swaddle her? Do I not swaddle her? Do I do the pacifier? Does she sleep on her tummy, on her back? Like, I don't know. And like, do I do this? Do I do that? What's the right answer? What's the wrong? And now I'm like, after my 4th child, everything was so lax, like just so vastly different. And I'm so thankful for that. And I don't even I do wish that I had someone in my corner all those years ago who could have, guided me and helped me and told me like, it's okay to just sit with your baby. You don't have to bounce back. You don't have to walk 3 miles 2 weeks after having a baby. Like, go slow. And so I do feel like I've learned how to have grace with both myself as an imperfect mom and with my children, in lowering the expectations as far as like, just like those cultural things, and focusing more on their heart. Like, what is their heart posture towards their siblings? What is their relationship with the Lord like? Is their faith growing on their own? Like, not because I'm telling them to, but are they developing their own relationship with God? Like fostering those things that I'm realizing are really a whole lot more important than how they're writing certain things. Like, and so just that heart posture change in myself, in seeing them as whole persons, that they also have their own relationship with learning. They have their own relationship with God, and fostering that more than fitting in with the culture around us.
Oh, that's powerful.
Yeah,
that's really powerful. Yeah, it is. It's important to have that mindset. I've been thinking recently, like, what am I instilling in my kids? Like, I want my kids to be, I want them to be a threat to the kingdom of darkness. So, like, how am I raising and fostering them to make that a reality? That doesn't, like, they don't have to wait until, they're in their teens or young adults. Like, that stuff can start now. And
they can start now.
Yeah. And it's a gift that we, I think it's one of the many blessings of homeschooling is that we can be very intentional with our time to make sure that we're fostering those things within them. So, yes, all the lessons are important and we do those things, but, just being very intentional about kind of how and what we're instilling in our children is so important. So, okay, friends, we are going to stick a pin in my conversation with Mary. I know it's getting so good, but I want you to check out part 2 of Having the Pace of Grace as a Homemaker and Home Educator. Man, I don't know about you, but I have just been so blessed by the conversation with Mary, and it only gets better. If you want to check out more of what Mary is doing, definitely go follow her on Instagram. She is there at our kin and home, our kin and home, or you can look her up on the World Wide Web, www.ourkinandhome.com. I want to give a shout out to anybody who is new to Charlotte Mason's philosophy and way of living. And if that is you, I have created something very special for you. It's a course for Charlotte Mason educators who are new. I have shared my story that I started home educating in the middle of the year and definitely had to learn on the fly. And so I've created a course that will help you understand and break down her philosophy, her principles, how you implement them, giving you an overview of the top Charlotte Mason curriculums and how to decide which one's going to be a good fit for you. Tons of bonus content. Like, I really tried to make it as easy as possible. So if you are that person or you know somebody who this would greatly benefit, go check out the course at charlottemasonenrichment.com/course. And I would love to help you as you're getting started. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. Remember that the only true education is self-education. So we're never going to stop learning and we're never going to stop growing. And I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.